guys hear that? I mean, I could... I'm tripping. Hey, what's up, you guys? It's Gamer Lynn here, part of 10x10. Becky couldn't make it today. She was a little busy, so I'm gonna be doing this one solo. So, what I came here to talk to you guys today is about a tabletop role-playing game that has come near and dear to my heart in the form of Shadows of the Demon Lord. Now, in Shadows of the Demon Lord, this is a tabletop role-playing game that deals with a dark fantasy setting. High fantasy, if you will, as it still deals with dungeons, dragons, dwarves, elves, all the aesthetic that you come to find in kind of a fantasy setting, but with a lot more dark tone and a lot more kind of like evilness oozing out of it. Now, this was a book written by and made famous Robert J Schwab. Now, me personally, I'm not familiar with Mr. Schwab's work, as I had to do a little bit of research in my reviewing and writing on the book, and I've come across a very beautiful and long history that Robert's had with making tabletop role-playing games, such as Dungeons and Dragons, I believe as early as 2nd or 3rd edition to 4th edition, and even a recent 5th edition. He's also known for his work with Monty Cook's Numeria and a number of other role-playing games that is just totally chef's kiss. Because of his long history with tabletop role-playing games, I'm pretty sure it was sooner or later he was going to give his own attempt at writing his own tabletop role-playing game without the influence, or should I say, without the backing of some of these big producing companies, as far as Wizards of the Coast or Green Ronin. So, with him going out to make his own book, he used the resource of Kickstarters and probably a good number of people throughout the industry in which he had a long relationship or trust in working with. And they came to this beautiful art piece. Now, in my review, I'm going to be talking about a couple of things such as rule sets, the setting and lore that is provided in the book, also talking about some of the art, and also some of the mechanics that evolves in the game that really contributes to tabletop role-playing games in many forms. Just because I say this book is good, or if I say this book is bad, you should always go out and find out for yourself, check it out, give your own opinions out there so that way you can better inform people like you to make their choice. But with me doing my review, I'm going to say that this is one of the best tabletop role-playing games out there that you can find that is outside of the realm of very famous books such as 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, Pathfinders, Call of Cthulhu, and so on. This is a gem that is gaining popularity, and I think most of that is due to Robert's great history and experience with making tabletop role-playing games. Clearly, he used some of the best things he learned to make this book. And what I mean by that is, one of the examples, the rule sets in the game. Now, the rules in this game are very simplistic, very simple math, very simple rolls, very simple dice. So that way, I think it's a mechanic utilized to make the game more streamlined towards the role-playing or telling of the story, which is very great. Because again, we didn't come to the game just to be stuck here doing math or math homework. We came to enjoy the story, to be able to play our characters in a world and how they fit, how they live, how they interact with other player characters, and how they can affect and change the world that they're in. This book does a very good job allowing you to utilize those tools to tell a great story with the very few hiccups of, hey, I gotta roll a d20, add a d8, and add 20 points on top of that. All that's gone. Very simple math, very low numbers, very low target numbers in which you have to hit to achieve or possibly underachieve to fail. Now, another thing that lends itself very well to the rule set is boons and banes. Now, when I say boons and banes, some of you might get the idea across of that sounds very Dungeons and Dragons, advantage and disadvantage. And you're not wrong. Because again, Robert has a history in working in Dungeons and Dragons. So why not utilize something that works, turn it on its head, and make it even better maybe? In my opinion, boons and banes work very, very similar to advantage and disadvantage. In the ways that boons is a plus to dice, or add dice to your dice roll to make it easier for you to achieve, because your character either has some kind of lucky environmental plus, or maybe they just have a knack in certain areas in which gives them extra dice or a better chance to succeed. Banes are the takeaway of dice from a roll, in which, because there's a hindrance from the environment or some type of phobia, fear, or hindrance the character might have in that moment from being able to hit that target number, that makes it very, very hard for them to achieve in that moment, which could also lend well to better role playing even, because again, it's up to the DM and GM sometimes how difficult or how easy something can be done. So role playing very well could probably give you that bonus, letting the GM or the DM know that your character abilities, or even into your stats, lead out this way to where you do have bonuses. Or maybe your GM can point out like, oh, but you know, you have this deficiency towards this. It's very conscious of being more involved in the game, and also to looking for those things to help you out, or possibly even in for the GM to hinder you with. It's a plus all around. I love it. Now, on to our next topic is the game mechanics in which this book touches upon. Now, there's other examples of this sort of system being used in Morpheus's games, and I believe there's a ton other out there that I don't come to mind right now. But another mechanic that I liked about this book was a random dice rolling table. With this dice table that is presented in the game, there's a lot of factors to it, because again, this might be something that turns players off, might even turn GMs off from using it. And the whole thing is, the book gets across is you don't have to use it. It's an optional thing. But I would probably recommend using it for certain aspects, or using a hybrid of it, as I believe this table does enhance the game a little bit further. For example, follow me here. In my game that I ran, I made my player characters, when in choosing their races, roll on these random dice for certain aspects, as far as once you chose your race, you now roll to kind of figure out where were you born, kind of like background traits, maybe your height or your age, to kind of create a randomness or realism to the game, because there's a lot of things, as in life, you don't get to choose. You're just born with, or given what you're given, and you have to work with it. And then there was aspects in which I was like, okay, now the player character, choose what you want to do as far as your class, this aspect of your life story. What are you trying to do now? What do you want to try to build towards? Me personally, that's what I did. For GMs and players out there, you can utilize this in the same way as I did, or do your own twist upon it, or throw it out entirely. The game does not force you to have to use this table, but I find it to be a mechanic that not only helps put some randomness or chaos into the game, but also too a bit of realism or stakes into the game, in which players will have to either figure out how to get over or go with. Now, with me talking about the mechanics, I definitely have to lead into kind of the lore of the book. Now, the lore of the book, again, is dark fantasy. And with it being dark fantasy, there's a lot of aspects of evil, there's a lot of aspects of gore, there's a lot of aspects of dread, and this is definitely within the lore and aesthetic of the game. The book evolves around a story of a world or a universe that has a dark, shadowy, looming, evil, devil, god, whatever you want to call it. He is basically winning in this world, and his darkness and his touch of evil is affecting multiple things, to the point where it almost feels like he is going to win. Evil in this book is on the verge of winning. Now, the shimmer of hope is possibly in your player characters. What can they do in this world to hinder this Dark Lord, the day of Armageddon, to prolong it, if not end it entirely? Or possibly they can contribute to it, maybe. Or maybe they are followers of this evil lord, or they accidentally allow this evil lord to win. Now, the lore provided in this book gives you a lot of different mechanics to use, and a lot of different history to kind of make it a lot less heavy work for the GM or the DM. But the other aspect that I love about this game is there's a lot of empty spaces, there's a lot of loopholes, there's a lot of places for the player characters and the dungeon master or the GM to put in their own story or their own twist on the story, if you may. And you can find this within the map, you can find this within the lore itself. It even makes clear points to where, hey, we left this empty for you to, if you want to, put a village here, put a town here, put another aesthetic of lore here. And there's a lot of different other mechanics that the game provides through its supplements. There's a lot of different small, short supplement books that evolve the story even further. As far as, for example, you want drows in your game. There's a drow book. There are dark elves. And there's a totally different book on how player characters can play a dark elf, their history if you want to use it, and even then some aesthetics of how to implement it into your story or how to turn it on its head to your liking. So there's a lot of customization that could come with the lore as far as the main book or any supplement books that you can get with it. And for me as a GM or a DM or even player character, options are always good. Now, leading into my next topic, since we're talking about more supplements and ideas of the book, I want to touch upon the art. The art is very, very beautiful. The art is one of the reasons why I picked up the book, because I did pick it up by chance. I didn't know too much about this book. I didn't know anything about the writer of the book. I basically looked at the cover. I was in the market looking for dark fantasy, and trust me, looking at this cover, it gets the point across. And man, does the book not disappoint. It is beautiful from cover to back cover. There's so much art, so much gore, so much violence, so much detail, so many aspects that helps not only get across the idea of dark fantasy, but also kind of paint a picture of how the world looks. How does the world even work through the picture that it paints? But now leads to the flaw of the book. One of the big flaws about Shadows of the Demon Lord is the fact that this is a dark fantasy. This is a dark world. This is a dark story. This is a dark campaign that you are preparing to run. And with doing that, you're going to come across aspects of the game in which certain tones, certain ideas, certain moments might be too dark even for you and your other players. Particularly, this is a very hard book to recommend if you have children in your campaign or children who like to play these games. Because again, this is very, very dark tone. I don't recommend this for children under certain ages. You just don't want to expose them to such things. And definitely through the art, you can see, even from the book, there are images of nudity, there's image of satanic imagery, there's imagery of gratuitous violence. And sometimes, or up to you as the adult in the situation, you don't want to expose this to children. And I even go further, there's some adults that can't handle what this book contains. And you're right to not want to. If this is not your bag, more than likely you're not looking into dark fantasy in the first place. But there's even some people who like the dark aesthetic of a campaign that still just cannot deal or want to deal with certain aspects of dark fantasy. And I believe the burden falls upon the GMs and the DMs to screen these sort of topics to figure out what is good for their players and what is not for their players. Talk with your players. Try to figure out what would you like to see in the game, what would you not like to see in the game. And for that, it's hard to ding this book for that aspect, because again, it delivers on what you want, which is a dark fantasy. It gives you every single tool and idea to be used. But still, because it does not lend itself well to being so kid-friendly or in any kind of way to where it could really be kid-friendly, it limits itself, which I think is the intent. So again, I hate to ding this book, but I have to, because its availability isn't so wide range as some other books might be. But I definitely say the burden lies in the GM and the DM to be able to figure out what is good for their players, what is not good for their players, and to be able to say, is this a good book for me to run, or is it not? Maybe there's something else or another resource that still deals in dark fantasy and doesn't go as hard as this book can be. But again, you can still run this game and just take those things out. It's always up to the DM or the GM. So, with that said, in conclusion, this is a very good book. This is a very good book and lends itself well to the dark fantasy theme. It's easy to pick up and play. It's easy to learn, which is good for beginners and veterans alike. Beautiful artwork, beautiful mechanics in it, which makes it feel new every time you play it, and has enough supplements and support with the book that is, let me remind you, very cheap too. Me personally, I would like to get multiple tomes of a tabletop role-playing game if it has different types of supplements out there. And this book, or this series, doesn't really do that. It does it in a very short amount, but because it's such small content or small supplements, it makes it very affordable and cheap. And that way you can comb through the details and figure out what you want without getting all the extra that you don't want. With that said, this is a very, very good tabletop role-playing game. This measures up to some of the top role-playing games out there as far as Dungeons & Dragons, Pathfinder, Call of Cthulhu. And its recognition is growing as the days go by. And I recommend it for every collection, for any GM and player characters out there that are looking for something new. Because of that, I myself, GamerLyn, and 10x10 give Shadows of the Demon Lord a 9 out of 10. And I recommend for you to play this definitely during this month of Halloween, October in 2020, as a lot of you are playing tabletop role-playing games online. Hopefully towards the end of the year and the beginning of next year, we can get back into our game stores or going back over to our friend's house to be able to enjoy such a game, because definitely I think this is a game to enjoy in person, to be able to see your friends' reactions or have those great moments together. But we do what we must, and this is a great book to be played online as well. And I will reference DriveThruRPG as a place to pick up a PDF copy. I'm pretty sure you can go to schwabsentertainment.com or wherever his website is to pick up a hard copy. But yeah, that's about it. So thank you guys for joining us today. Again, I am GamerLyn. This is a 10x10 production. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you agree or disagree with anything I've said here. Next time, if you want to see a video like this, make sure to click the bell for notifications. And yeah, guys, stay safe and have fun out there. And as always, keep it 100. Yeah. Keep it 100. 100%. Keep it. Keep it close. Close. As close as you can. Let it in. Let it in. Let the demon lord in. Let it in. Let it in.